Hey everybody. So our verse for today is First John 4:16. So let me go ahead and read it. And so we know and rely on the love God has for us. God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God and God in them. Okay, so there's going to be a lot to unpack in this study. So the first part of this verse talks about knowing and relying on God's love. So you have to know about his love before you can rely on it. So in order to do this, you have to study about God's love and meditate on it day and night, as David says in his Psalms. And this is a daily process. So also we're talking about relying on God's love. And when I thought about this myself, the first thing that I thought about was fear. When we're afraid, we have to rely on God's love. And I thought about the verse that says, perfect love drives out fear. And when I went to look it up, it's First John 4:18, so it's two verses after the verse we're talking about. So that let me know that I was on the right track. Um, and by the way, side note, verse 17 is really awesome. I'm going to try to stay on topic and only do today's verse, but honestly, the whole chapter and the whole book, First John, is awesome. Anyway, the next part of this verse says that God is love. And I'll be honest with you guys, this is something that it's hard to truly wrap your head around. And this is another one that you're going to have to meditate on for a bit, just thinking that God is love. And when I was doing this study, a thought that I had was that God is holy. So if God is love and God is holy, then love is holy. And that's a whole other thing to think about right there. Um so anyway, just a lot of stuff to unpack, like I said. And that whole idea that I just said, that love is holy, perfectly segues us into the last part of this verse that says, whoever lives in love lives in God and God in them. So that brings me to a little bit of a personal story. And it might seem like I'm like going off the rails by saying all this, but just stick with me because we're going to get to the verse, okay? So, my Puerto Rican grandma, so that would be the one on my dad's side, had this beautiful garden at her house when I was growing up. And I vaguely remember her having bunny rabbits in the garden now that I'm thinking about it. But anyway, whenever I would go to her house, I always wanted to go in the garden. And sometimes I would be allowed to go in, but a lot of the time, no. And I was really little at that time, so I guess she didn't want me like picking the flowers and doing stuff like that that a little kid would do in a garden. But there was one time in particular that I remember that I was allowed to go in there. And at that time, I was probably like maybe 4 years old. And I remember this vividly. And all of the plants and the flowers were just so like vibrant and lush. It was almost like being in a dream. Like that's what it was like. And that's like how I remember this memory. And I'm getting to the point, don't worry. So, my grandmother's first language was Spanish. She was from Puerto Rico. And also, she had a stroke. So, a lot of the time, it was hard for me to understand what she was saying or what she was even trying to say to me, especially because I was a little kid and like I was just learning how to talk myself. But anyway, this particular day and this particular time, she said something to me that stuck with me for the rest of my life. And when she said it, I understood the words that she was said, but it wasn't until almost 30 years later that I understood what she meant. So she looked me in the eye, she looked down at me because I was little, and she said to me, God is in you and God is in me. And I never forgot about that experience. And like even when I got far away from God, I still thought about that day like a lot. And that was for a reason. So I didn't realize that what she was telling me was biblical. And obviously, what she told me relates to our verse for today. But in my own personal studies, I'm really trying to understand what it means that human beings are all image bearers of God. So Genesis 1:26, God says, "Let us make man in our image." And just for clarity purposes, God says in our image because of the Holy Trinity, all right? And anybody that wants to argue that the Trinity is like a New Testament concept, it's so clear. Like, just read the Bible and you'll understand. Anyway, don't let me get off on a whole tangent about that. So, mankind being created in God's image is another one that's like really hard for me to fully like wrap my head around, but I'm learning more and more about it. And God is continuously revealing more and more things to me each day, and I'm earnestly seeking Him and trying to figure these things out, and that's why I'm doing these studies. It's for you guys, but it's for me just as much. So I really hope you're enjoying these studies. So today I gave you a lot of things to think about, and for me too. So I would love your feedback. I really hope that you learned something about the character of God today, and I hope and pray that this bless somebody today. So have a great day and God bless, guys.